Good evening. My name is Norman, and tonight I'd like to talk to you about why I think the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 is so beautiful. This is a fair use video, which is covered under copyright. Fair use is allowed for the purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe on copyright under 17 USC 107. We're talking about the original Matt Jeffries design, the one we see in Star Trek, the original series. No bloody A, no bloody B, no bloody C, no bloody D. So, by profession, I'm an engineer, but I'm also an amateur artist. And I have studied this design for decades, trying to crack the code of what makes this starship so beautiful, at least in my opinion. And I've come up with a few things, having studied art and understanding a little bit, certainly not an expert, about what makes things attractive in art. So one of the things that makes things attractive in art is odd numbers. 3 and 5 are more attractive than 2 and 4. If you have 3 of something, or you have 4 of something, 3 is considered more dynamic, 4 is considered more static. If you have 5 of something, that's considered more dynamic, and 6 of something is considered static. So that's the first thing that we see when we look at this ship. We have 3 of things. We also have them arranged in triangles. So that's another thing that kind of makes this ship more interesting, because triangles are considered much more attractive than, say, a rectangle or a circle. So there's these triangles that we'll talk about as well in the design of the ship. And then there's this thing in design called the rule of 3. Now, the rule of 3 says that if you have 3 of something, that's attractive. 3 of the same pillow. 3 areas that are painted the same color in a room. 3 shapes that are similar. Like if you have 3 boxes, for example, that would be more attractive than, say, 4 boxes. So you have odd numbers, you have 3 of things, and you have these triangles everywhere on this ship. So let's get into that a little bit. Okay, now, as I talked about, odd numbers and rules of 3. Now, before I go on, I'm going to mention E.C. Henry's video, and if I can find it, I will link it in my description of this video. He talks about the rules of thirds when he talks about this ship. And the rule of thirds is you divide your screen up into 3 horizontal and 3 vertical areas. And if you have something interesting going on in those sort of rectangles that you make up, it's an interesting design. That's what he talks about. And so his video is also rather intriguing. So I will, as I say, I will link that in the description if I can find it. So where do we have 3 of something? Well, we have three struts. We have a port and starboard nacelle, and then the neck. So there's three things right there. Right? Now, if you connect the lines, the red lines together, you will also find that you have a bunch of triangles. And those triangles, there's like three triangles right there. If you connect the lines, you can create three different triangles out of that section, out of those three lines that I'm showing you right now. Following with the rule of thirds, we also have three cylinders: port and starboard nacelle and engineering section. But if you look at it, you'll notice that there's also three vents, I would call them, on each of the nacelles on the bottom. I'm not sure what the technical manual calls them because I don't have that. And you also have, around the sensor dish, you have three rectangles that are the deflectors according to Salty Tracker. So now you have three cylinders, and then you have three projection on each of the cylinders, or three rectangles on each of the cylinders as well. You'll also notice that the top of the saucer, or the above section of the saucer, creates a triangle or a pyramid shape. And below the saucer is also a pyramid shape or a triangle. So we have triangles everywhere. Triangles, again, are more attractive. One of the things that we learned that I remember from my art history lessons is that the Madonna and Child creates a triangle. So you have three people in the Madonna and Child most often. You have Mary, you have the infant Jesus, and you have his brother James. And that they're usually arranged in a triangle because triangles, like I say, they're just more attractive for some reason. So that is why, one of the reasons why I think this ship is more attractive. Looking at it from the top, we have another triangle that is created by the port and starboard nacelle struts and the center of the bridge. And then we also have this triangle that is created by the neck, the nacelle, and the nacelle struts. And this one happens to be truncated, so that makes it even more interesting because it's not a perfect triangle. And it creates this negative space as well, which it's just kind of a fascinating thing. Negative space is often used to make things more interesting. Now, if you'll notice, the nacelles are slightly higher than the main section of the saucer, which kind of leads us into another topic of discussion, which is balance. Because the nacelles are slightly higher than the saucer section, it kind of balances out the design of the ship in total, so that it doesn't seem heavy, so front heavy. You know, one of the things about the Enterprise D is because the nacelles are so far down, it looks heavy in the front. It just does. It's not a very attractive design, in my opinion. So you have this balance with the nacelles and the saucer section. You also have this balance fore and aft. if you notice, the saucer section sticks way the hell out in front of the sensor array. But the nacelles also stick out way the hell behind the shuttle bay. Now, the saucer actually sticks out a little bit further in front than the nacelles do behind. But because the saucer is, the main section is kind of thinner and the nacelles are kind of meatier, they're a little bit more fat, they balance each other out pretty well, even though the nacelles aren't as far aft of the shuttle bay as the tip of the saucer section is forward of the sensor array. But is that really all there is to it? Is it just the fact that you have repeating shapes and triangles and that's all that there is? Well, not really. Because one thing that this ship has that so many other ships, starship designs that we see in science fiction franchises, one of the things that this ship has that the others don't is it has a sense of place in that it looks like it was born amongst the stars. It's not just 3 cylinders, 3 struts, triangles. It's the fact that it gives no F's towards aerodynamics. It gives no F's towards hydrodynamics. And it seemingly gives no F's to gravity. Because it's this negative space in between the saucer section and the neck, between the nacelles, between all these things that make it seem like it's designed by somebody who actually lived in the 23rd century and was designing starships. If we take a look at other starships from other franchises, we'll take a look at 2 here, you will notice that the bulk of the ship is in sort of a box shape, right? You look on the ship on the left, we can see that it's a wedge-shaped ship, and the bulk of it is in a horizontal direction. Take a look at the ship on the right, it's the same thing. Excuse me, that was my phone. We're going to live with that because we're almost done. This ship and this ship they would float in a bathtub. You stick these guys in a bathtub, they're pretty stable inside of a bathtub, right? So they could be surface warfare ships. They could be advanced Navy ships, that go around in the ocean. But this guy, this ship right here, it only has one place to go. It fits in only one place, and that's outer space. And that's the brilliance, that's the real brilliance of what Matt Jeffries has done here. He created a ship that has beauty to it, but also can only live in outer space. Now, yeah, we've seen it in atmosphere once in the original series, but that was by accident. It wasn't meant to be in the atmosphere. And in Star Trek 2009, for some reason, they were building these things in this giant canyon in Iowa, I suppose. Where this giant canyon came from in Iowa, I have no idea. But there it was. Suddenly, this very flat state has this giant hole in it where they're building starships. So in 2009, this ship is supposedly able to fly out of a hole in the ground and up to space. But this ship right here, this original design, is just so beautiful and so iconic, and it has one place and one place only where it makes sense. And that is outer space. Now, let's look at what Gene Roddenberry wanted, just as an idea of what we might have gotten if Gene Roddenberry had had his way. Because when Matt Jeffries showed him this ship, it turned upside down by accident because it was hung by a string or something. And Gene Roddenberry saw it upside down, and he loved it. He thought this was great. This is what we might have had Gene Roddenberry won that argument about which way the ship was, which side is up and which side is down. Which, again, in space, there is no up and down. And this ship has no up and down. It gives no F's towards up and down. And to me, this is still kind of a cool looking design, upside down, but it also kind of reminds me of a snowmobile, where the nacelles are being replaced with tractors, and then the saucer section would be, the front tire, and the secondary hull would be where the rider sits. And so, thank God Gene Roddenberry didn't get his way, because this right here is just so iconic and so beautiful. And thank God for Matt Jeffries for bringing us this design. If you like this video, please comment, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video with your friends and family if you feel so inclined. And we're going to live with that beat too, because we're done. That's my phone, guys. So sorry about that little beeping sound. Images are courtesy of TrekCore and some of the drawings I found online as well. If I knew who that created them, I would give them credit too. So to that unknown person, thank you so much for drawing these beautiful drawings of the ship. I've been Norman. Please have a pleasant evening.